Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of Idiosyncratic Fables, a part of Wilderness Fire Productions, where we are cultivating the passion for books, audiobooks, and storytelling. Since time immemorial, we have been storytellers. Everybody's got a story to tell, and I want to hear yours. I'm your host, James, and today we're heading straight to the heart of Boston and beyond. My guest is a true force in the narration game. Over 600 audiobooks under his belt, 4 Earphones Awards, an Audie win in the mix, voices in Fallout 4, Mafia III, and Starfield, on-camera work on Gotham and Castle, former sports radio host and boxing commentator, and now CEO and founder of Leonardo Audio and Narrator Publishing. He's the guy who can flip from gritty Boston Noir to Russian mobster to RP British without missing a beat. And he's built his whole brand around staying authentic and dark and relentlessly in the listener's ear. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the one and only Boston voice guy himself, Chris Ciulla. Chris, thank you so much for being on the show today.
You're welcome. That was wonderful. Can you do that one more, just one more time, or just replay it? It's fine. Wonderful. Thank you for that.
Yeah, man.
And thank you for the research. Very good. I'm happy to be here, James, and I'm glad you're doing it.
Yeah, me too. I mean, and honestly, far be it for me to not do my research, because that wouldn't be fair to me and most certainly not fair to you.
Sure. Some of it is a blessing and some of it is a curse.
So, Chris, let's go with your origin story and where you got your roots. You're the ultimate Boston voice guy, former improv, sketch comic, sports radio host, boxing commentator, and now award-winning narrator. Take us back. How does a fisherman's son from Boston end up with over 600 audiobooks and your own publishing company?
Yeah, it took a while. Moreover, we've hit the half-century mark last July, so it took a little bit, but origins, let's go all the way back. So I was, I'm from a town called Everett. I should say a city. It's a city just outside of Boston, north of Boston. It's basically the gateway to the North Shore of Boston. We're right next to Charlestown. And I will tell you that if you saw the beginning of the town, and it said that there were that Charlestown has the most bank robbers in New England or something in the history of Massachusetts. I will say that per capita, there were just as many bank robbers in Everett than there were in Charlestown, in my hometown.
Oh, wow.
So that's the type of town I came from, and we're an athletic powerhouse, but I'm a little person. So I took up. I was a tennis player, which led me to attempting a boxing career as I was younger, and then I learned pretty soon that I stunk. I was not good. So I became a boxing coach, and I've always been a good coach at all the things that I've done. So when I was, say, a 13-year-old tennis player, I was coaching 9-year-olds and 10-year-olds. And when I was the same age, I was coaching basketball youth. And so there's always been a coaching thread within my soul that has never left. But I after going to Everett High School, public school, I went to Boston College. And at the tail end of my BC life, I took a theater elective and realized that I enjoyed it. And I've always been a cineast. I've always been a film boy.
Okay.
And my original thought was to direct. I always wanted to direct. So I learned as I was attempting to get a comm minor from Boston College. I was one class short. I was doing a lot of shooting. I was shooting like TV production, studio production. I was helping ESPN and their telecasts, and learning about not only the video aspects of it, but audio. So when I graduated, I went, started to work for Congress. And while I was working for Congress, a friend of mine suggested that I take an improv class. And so that sent me on a path of basically one foot out the door every moment of my congressional aid career. So every weekend I was traveling to another town, another school to do a student project or an independent film or an independent short film. I was shooting through 1997, 1998, 1999. And then I eventually worked at the State House. And while I was at the State House in Massachusetts, I knew, okay, I'm going to move to LA, because at that time, even before 9/11 happened, New York was pretty dead for the film industry. Like, so they were, other areas were more financially viable because they discovered like tax incentives. New York was late to that. So and there was no Atlanta yet. There was no Chicago yet. So the only place to go was LA if you wanted to be an actor. So I went out to LA back in 2000, the end of 2001. And then I struggled for years trying to be an on-camera commercial, TV, and film actor. I'm a very hard person to brand, James. Like, I would get hired by a modeling company and they would have a sports division and I'd be in good shape, but I'd be the least ripped guy out of all the guys they had on their roster. And then I would be like thrown in with the really good looking guys, and I'd be the ugliest guy in the good looking room. I'd get tossed into the Italians for some casting, and then I would be the least Italian looking guy in the room. You know, like, so they were having trouble branding me.
Right.
They couldn't put me in the right basket. So in 2009, it's like 1,000 degrees outside. It literally was, I think 120. I'm in a Barnes and Noble in Woodland Hills. I look at this shelf, and it's got these square boxes on it that are plastic. And I'm like, those aren't books. What the hell are those? I grab one. It's a James Grisham novel.
A Time to Kill, right?
One of them. Michael Beck read a few of them, and it was one of his. So I flipped it over to the back, and it said, read by Michael Beck. I go, Michael Beck? He was in The Warriors. He was Swan.
Right.
In the Walter Hill's movie. And then he was in Xanadu with Olivia Newton-John. And then he did nothing for a really long time because he got some Razzies.
Yeah.
He maybe did like a Matlock.
Something like that.
What he was doing, I looked him up. He was reading audiobooks. And he was getting his health insurance and earning a pension. So all that stuff went very early into my head that, okay, I haven't had a viable commercial year in a long time. And I haven't been able to get my health insurance through the union. So what can I do? So that was a ping, the first ping about audiobooks in 2009. I didn't really pursue it until 2012, where I said, you know what? I really want to do this. So I started to listen to audiobooks full time to try to just get an idea of what was good. And then I took a class with Pat Fraley, who had two people that were teaching it with him, and they were Scott Brick and Hillary Huber.
Oh, I love those folks.
And then we did a couple of demos in there with them, and I got a nice booklet, and then then it started, and I basically did 7 books in 13, 8 books in 2014, 7 books in 2015. So in my first 3 years as an actual trained actor, I only did like 22 books, 23 books. And so normal people would say, oh, okay, this isn't working. Let's get rid of it. Something told me to stay. Something told me you got to keep on going. And so I eventually took a class. Michelle Cobb put it together with Paul Allen Rubin, who is a very well-known director in our and producer in our industry. And it wasn't that he even gave me things like his direction wasn't that detailed. But the fact that he taught me that you need to get quiet. You need to get quiet. You need to figure out what the quietest point that you're still talking can be. And that's like the end of the left side of the spectrum. So once you learn that and learn that you've got to be closer to that than you ever thought possible, meaning the thing that we can, like the actionable thing that makes us do is it brings the listener closer to you. Whoever you're telling the story to, they're right behind your microphone. And when that happened, man, things rang true. So from that point on, I think I did like those next 4 years, I did like 280 books. I averaged like 70 books a year.
That's fantastic. My first audiobook coach, Johnny Heller, said something very similar. Said, your microphone is literally the person's ear. So therefore, you need to ask yourself, how loud or how quiet do I need to be in order for them to comprehend what I'm saying? And that was like a light switch, 180-degree change for my style of narration.
Yeah, so what Johnny said is the exact it's the best way to describe energy.
Yeah.
Like not only volume, but energy.
But intensity,
So
yeah.
if the energy coming out of you, right? If you are shooting too much energy into your microphone, you're going to overwhelm your listener. And it's that simple. So, like I just said, something told me to stay. We're going to, staying is a theme in audiobooks because it's long form. We work our butts off. We are the garbage pail carrying members of the performance community. We are the construction workers. We're working more hours and more details than musical theater performers, right? So we need to be able to stay we need to do whatever we can to allow the listener to stay with us. We don't give them a reason to leave. And as long as we understand that part of the process, you're gonna gain a listenership, which in 2026 is incredibly important to not only work on your old school Q rating, right? How you're seen in a popularity social media sense, but because that is what allows you to increase your rate, James. So that's the one thing that allows you to, if you want to make more money, then you need to have a listenership that results in more sales. And a lot of, in the old school, you could call me at 50 acting for 30 years. You can call me old school now. It's crazy that I can say that, but I'm now an old school actor, right? In the old days, they would tell you, just do the audition and forget about it. It's done. Don't worry about it. Do the job. It's done. Next, take the next job. That is not the way the world works now.
No.
You need to market yourself. You need to interact. You need to engage. These are things that, especially for audiobook narrators who don't have the visual medium to be able to assist in growth, if you don't have that, those other cookie jars that you have your hands in, that diversified performance career, you really do have to start to engage with the listenership.
Absolutely. Let's talk about the genres that you really enjoy. You're known for loving the dark, just gritty stuff, thrillers, noir, horror. What is it about those genres that lights you up as a performer?
I think, I'm an Uta Hagen guy, so I use a lot of substitution. And through my life, if I can be honest and reflect, I've been through a lot. I lived a pretty sheltered life up to a certain point, but even within that sheltered life, I was dealing with severe anxiety that went undiagnosed for about, I'd say, the better part of 10 to 12 years. So getting through that and all the sort of microaggressions and trauma from that to having some larger real life events affect me in ways that were altering, life changing. Some in positive ways. I'm not going to use the term negative, but some in,
formative.
Just yes, absolutely formative ways that, change the way I react in certain situations. I do not see it as a negative to go back to those situations and relive them. I see it as a positive. I see it as taking a negative and making it into a positive to make a better listener experience for someone who has chosen to dive into that world with me. So, it can be exhausting. It can be gut wrenching, but I've also had a unique life in the jobs that I've had. Uh, at the same time, so I went from being a congressional aide to Ed Markey in Congress before he was a senator in the 90s to in the aughts in LA running the door of the largest nightclub in LA and simultaneously being the head boxing trainer at Crunch's flagship location on Sunset Boulevard. Like, so it was a 180 of life experiences and stakes. Like, so the stakes were completely different. And I was thrown into not one, but two different worlds of, because while I was doing that thing at that, while I was training boxers and like movie stars at Crunch, right? I was then working with like professional gyms and going into camps and being their athletic trainer. So I was not the guy that would be the like what we call their chief second. I'd be the guy that would help them be the best athletic boxer in the ring on that day. That was my like forte. Not to do not to be the chief technician slash strategist. Right. So but to be around those people is like it's just a scary world. Scary, right? Scary. So to go back into those modes and to not be pretending all the way, to be like, okay, I've been in a room like this and survived. So, that type of stuff, I love to bring it back. I wasn't like a police detective or a cop. It's not that not that kind of thing. But there were situations that were nuts. Like we had a triad gang fight one night where, there was knives and guns, like
right
all over the place. Right. So and there was, things that in order to protect people, you had to do X, Y, and Z. So it's to go back into that and to live those moments. And then, yes, to be able to go two steps further and pretend on the other stuff and but commit and be visceral and like, and not be afraid to go back and afraid to really boots on the ground, create that three-dimensionality. Like, I love that stuff. I love it.
Because it's with scenarios like the ones you just mentioned that even subconsciously comes through in your voice when you're telling those stories, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think so. If someone is being authentic, I think, if you're a good actor, and I would never say that I'm a great actor because it's so subjective, but I'm someone who studied and I have a method that gets me there. Now, would I do the same thing that I'm doing there, like on TV stuff and film stuff? When you've got to be repetitive and do the same take 10 times, I don't know. I'd have to get back. Hopefully we'll get back into that come mid 26 and early 27. But it's yeah, man, it's just I like the fact that you can be in it and then you just I can go back upstairs and kiss my French bulldog on the face. You know what I mean? And be like, yeah, this is my buddy. And it's yeah, I think when you bring true reality to imaginary circumstances, if you do your homework, a certain percentage of the listenership is gonna come with you.
I love that. You can flip between Boston, Brooklyn, RP British, Irish, Russian, German, just to name a few, without breaking a sweat. How do you prep accents for, let's say, like a 12-hour book, and what's the wildest accent request you've ever gotten?
Depends on the book, right? And depends on, my little advantage in this is I was a voice impressionist. So like for years on sports radio, I would do comedy bits where I would be Chris Walken. And Chris Walken would call in during March Madness and Chris Walken would know, like in the first round, in the Southeast region, who's going to win when it comes to the 5 seed versus the 12 seed. That's not something that Chris Walken usually knows. But
No.
but for a 10-year period, he would do that, and then I would do, like, I could do Shatner. We did a lot of hockey people, and then we used to do, where, depending on the town that I was living in, we would pick up the local sports heroes. Like, there was a guy in L.A. and Anaheim by the name of Rex Hudler that used to do weekly visits to sports radio, and he was just a fun, kooky guy. So
Right.
he was a great guy to do an impression of. So the ability to mimic allows me to not have to go into an edit bay, like into a study bay, for something that is, say, 5 to 10 lines long.
Sure.
I can just create a character that sounds like another character that I would, say, find on YouTube. And then I can just kind of watch that, get into that vocal mode, replay it, and then get into the book. If I'm having trouble with it, a technique I will do is I will take the extra time, and I will partition those lines, and I'll just do those lines in a row. And then that's the advantage of being an audiobook narrator. We can edit that stuff back in. So if I'm having an issue, I'll do that. But all those ones that you mentioned are fun to go from person to person to person, because I've been doing them for 15, 20 years. I was doing them before I was an audiobook narrator for fun. So,
Right.
And the Russian, I actually booked in Sammy's Sea Adventures #2, Sammy's Adventure, it's called something like that, a movie that I did. I did a Russian snow crab bouncer, and this is when I'm well cast to be this character. I played a Russian undersea bouncer, a crab in a club in the water,
Right.
deep in the sea. So and I totally BS'd it, James. Like, so I didn't know what I was doing, but it just sounded good, and they loved the character, right? So I said, you know what? I don't want to BS this anymore. So I went to the Beverly Hills Institute, that was on either Rodeo Drive or Beverly, and I wasn't living too far from that area. I would drive in from Studio City to there, or go over I think, like Coldwater Canyon, and I took 10 weeks of Russian. So I wanted to know that my roots, where I was coming from, were the right sounds. And so that allowed me to get some, like, bookings that were like, one was, I did the Doomed City, and I did the Doomed City, and it's either the snail on the slope, or it's the snail on the something. The Strugatsky brothers were legendary sci-fi writers and apocalyptic writers from Russia. And the Doomed City was a book that they had hidden. They couldn't release it for like 12, 13 years. And then when we had Glasnost, Perestroika, all that stuff, they were able to release the book in 1986. So I was able to narrate that for Blackstone. And I think I chose a slight Russian accent on the narration for that, because we could, if I remember correctly. I don't.
Yeah.
Maybe not. I've had to listen to it. I'd have to. But all the characters were like Russian, so, like, you had to know how to do that stuff well. When it comes to certain accents, I'm not a phonetic alphabet guy. I've never studied the IPA, although it's something that I would love if I had time to do a deep dive into, but I just don't have time to do it. I like to find a character, if it's going to be a meteor character that you really do have to inhibit. I like to find a character or two, and I can make an amalgamation of those people on YouTube. And they may do that accent test, or they might just be having a conversation. I've used multiple different videos, but what I will do is, before I start, I will mimic them, and I'll watch the video once. Say it's a 5-minute video. I'll watch it once, and I will, as they talk, I will talk. I will say their lines as they say their line. I will say their lines as they're saying it. And so I will get into the character that way.
Okay.
And I've done that. Like, I have a series that I've done for Podium called Bob and Nikki, which I'll be reading book number 41 for a guy named Jerry Boyd, who unfortunately passed away last year of a heart attack. But I think he wrote 55 of these, and I'm up to 41. It's very camp, and it's space based in the Ozarks. So I tried to read the first person narration straight and then do the characters big, and I'm like, this is not working. So I said, I'm doing a huge deep dive. I found some people from the Arkansas side of that county, of basically the Arkansas side of the Ozarks. I found two people, one educated, one basically like living on a street, and this is the character that I made for Bob, the lead. The first person character is an amalgamation of those two. So if you listen to that series, that character is a full deep dive into an Ozark accent, first person, and it's a little big because it's camp. The whole thing is a little camp. So that's an example of like a deep dive that I would do.
Fantastic. Now, you've done both solo narrations and big multicast productions. What's the biggest difference in your headspace, and do you have a favorite multicast story?
So how do the question is, how do I kind of deal with multicast in my life?
Yeah.
Basically. It hasn't, to me, as someone, we've got these different levels of multicast, right? So technically anything over two people is multicast, right? So that's the definition of the word. But we have dual style, where you've got the POVs all on their own, and then you've got duet style, where everybody is technically, only really about 15-20% of the time, but technically we're all talking to each other in the same room somehow during production. I do get cast in these. The advantage is I live only 20 minutes from Audible, and I'm on a short list for them. So I do, at least 4 Audible originals a year, usually around 6. I'll do one every 2 months or so. They won't be more than 2 days in a row. It'll be a 2-hour session, but it'll be fun because we'll have at least 4 people in the room, sometimes more. And so it makes it a blast. But in my world, I think, and in most full-time narrators' worlds, I'm not talking about from the production side, but talking from a narrator side.
Right.
It's still a spattering. It's not a lot of volume, because our worlds are still dominated by, single narrator and dual style projects. The dual style projects are, and even if it is a POV like that, the only thing you've got to do is it's the same process. You just have to make sure that you're prepping the entire book so you're not missing something and you're still communicating on characters. You just get a $200 bump for collaboration instead of a $100 bump, because it's, just a lot more stuff. Or I should say, I think the delineation is, it's for dual, it's 100, and duet, it's 200. Yeah, I think it's 200 for duet.
I think you're right.
I'm going to go back. So it's just, it's there. I think the thing to consider for everyone is there are companies that are understanding that they want to be in both the audiobook space and the podcast space almost simultaneously. And a lot of this is just how it's distributed, James. So you take an audiobook that is a multicast, full production, sound designed audiobook, right? And it's just, we'll call it an omnibus. You got it over here on Audible as that particular thing. But then over there, you've got it on Spotify as each chapter has its own episode. But they're the same exact thing. So I think the thing that we're all trying to figure out is, what is the crossover? What's the listenership for these full productions, right? Who's going to be listening to them? where are these listeners? Are they, movie people that are dipping their toe into audio? Or are they true audiobook listeners that are needing a little more stimulation, right? I don't think there's an answer to that yet. So to me, it's more about um, let's just keep on making good content and have a good plan to market it. I would like to see more supplemental programming for existing IPs that keep on doing this dive into audio. I think it makes a lot of sense for certain IP to start to come into our world because the budgets are so much lower in general than anything you're going to shoot on a set. And it makes a ton of sense because the quality of the entertainment is just as good as anything you're going to shoot. So, and you have the advantage of listening passively, right? You can now listen when you're driving your car, or when you're on your bicycle, when you're on a subway. So, yeah, I mean, I don't know if I went on a tangent, but it's more, I see it as, it's fun when you get to work with people one-on-one. It's always a blast for real actors to be actually like feeling like we're on a stage and working with each other, or feeling like we're on a set and working with each other. And when you work on a true multicast where, production has set it up where you're literally working with each other, even online, even like through Zoom or Riverside or, even the StreamYard, like all this stuff, like it doesn't, as long as you're working with each other, like it hits like those endorphins a little differently. Like you're like, oh wow, I this was real work today.
Gotcha. Now, let's go beyond audiobooks for a bit. You've voiced characters in Fallout 4, Mafia 3, Final Fantasy, and even Starfield.
Yeah.
How would you say video game voiceovers differ from sitting down with a 400-page novel?
Well, there's a big difference. When we go in, where the similarities lie are we need to know the world. We need to understand the tone of the world, right? We need to know the mood. We need to know these things in order to start from the right point and create a three-dimensionality that makes sense in the world. It's a puzzle. So your puzzle piece has to fit in that world. Beyond that, the sessions are completely different. Let's say there's two basically different types of video game sessions that we will work on. One is going to be a line sheet of lines that we will sometimes they'll want depending on like the quest in the game, say you're doing an NPC character and you're it's non-player character. So when I'm saying NPC character, it's a non-player character. But you know what I mean, and the listeners know what I mean. When you're doing that type of work, they're either going to have they're going to want either one really good read on everything, or they might want an ABC read, which they're going for like different attitudes for each read. And I will tell you that only recently have they been releasing this text to us before we get to the sessions. So as video game performers, and I'm not including mocap right now. I'm not including going to a hangar, getting into the suit, having the cameras on us, because most of that work you've got to get off book. It's basically like you're going to set and you're shooting a TV show. It's a little different here with this stuff. When you're going into a session, you have all the lines in front of you. But in the past, we didn't get to see that. So, and you needed to be tight. You needed to like not make a lot of mistakes. So we were all trained to pick up lines. And once you got into your character, whatever you were seeing, you're making a quick choice on it, depending on the direction you were getting, and you were knocking it out. You were knocking it out. But the characters have to, and then you kind of want to have, in case the character that you auditioned with, they're not liking for some reason, You need to have like another two choices ready that are distinctly different than the choice that you just made. And you want to have general different choices anyway, because they're probably going to throw a couple different characters at you at the end of the session and be like, you know what? We've got this other character too. We think you'd be great for it. Can you do this today? And then you're going to do it. So like, you the versatility in that world, but it's the versatility without preparation is really important. And then we have cutscenes, which are a lot more like a TV show or a film.
Sure.
Again, you've got the lines in front of you, but the style is different. So like the cutscene is going to be much more like a theatrical cinematic experience. And they might take more takes in that thing because it's going to be really important for the storyline to keep on moving the player forward. So those are like the two different ways that we work. And it's a different modality, James. It's not, when it comes to I will say though, and it's interesting that I don't work a lot in lit RPG. I don't think it's anybody's fault. I don't think it's like, I don't think it's by design. I just think that, there are other, mystery thrillers have kind of like, as far as for frontless titles, those are the ones that I get some play in. I probably should in lit RPG game lit stuff, right? Because I'm doing all these characters in the games. Like I am. I'm doing all the characters, man. Like they're in these games. Like I'm like, when you do a companion in Starfield, like that's a nice gig. I've done like 35 characters in the Fallout world, right? Like there's some variety there. And I understand like game sheets. I understand stat sheets. Even as Travis Baltrey has like reset how we perform these things, right? And that's awesome. We follow the format. Yeah, we can do that. Awesome. So it's something that I think eventually we'll end up doing this. We'll calibrate. Yeah, it just, but no lights have gone on yet. And I produce for Podium. You know what I mean? Like, and they're doing some of this great stuff. And the interesting thing though is, I they have their submission sheet. I'm sure you've put all your info in their submission sheet. I forgot to click on my name.
Oh no.
So only yesterday did they get my full, what you got, like, all the research you did. Like now they know that. Now they know, oh, you mean to tell me Chris was a signer at the Fallout fan celebration for 3 days? And today he's got to catch up on doing ghoul voices for like 10 fans for their either their phone messages or for their friends, right? Like people don't realize. Like so but it's because we're busy, James. It's okay, like I'm not, there's no regrets. It's just
right.
And I think at heart I'm more of like I'm an alien Blade Runner. I'm a sci-fi guy. Like if you're gonna have me in a certain IP for game lit or a certain IP for sci-fi, I'm probably gonna lean toward the sci-fi because I'm old. Because I'm a Ridley Scott guy. So yeah, I think but it's just funny, yeah, it's and in that world, the other major difference is you got to be repped, in video games. Like you got to have a half decent agent that's getting you the auditions that are right for your type. And in audiobooks, we don't need that. This is direct marketing.
Right.
And that's the other major difference.
You've got some on-camera credits to include Castle and Gotham. Do you have any set stories that still make you laugh? And do those acting muscles help or hurt when you're alone in the booth?
I mean, I go back to the memory banks. I have plenty of fun of stuff that was interesting. I'll tell you I'll tell you the story about when I was on set for Gotham. So I got to play Hamlet, and a couple of years before that in LA, I was supposed to be Horatio. Horatio's in Hamlet, right? I was supposed to play Horatio on an off obviously it's LA off Broadway, but it was a cute theater that we had. We were gonna do a nice like 4 week run, and that was canceled the week before because the lead was a very Italian guy.
Okay.
Like and the director, this guy Martin, was a terrific, well-known theater director. Um, they had discussed his accent, and at first he was agreeing to get rid of it and to order work on it. And as we were rehearsing, we were realizing that it is not going anywhere. And then it was off. We were no longer doing the true Hamlet set to like it was almost it was and I would joke around. I'm like, we're doing a mashup of Hamlet and the Merchant of Venice.
Mm-hmm.
So the Merchant of Venice, Venezia. So the come a few years later, I go in and I audition for Bowling and Misha in New York, and it's my first audition in their house, and no callback. They just booked me off that read, and I'm notorious for not being able to get off book for auditions. I'm just my brain doesn't work sometimes, but I nailed that one. I had it within me, and so then we go on set, and at this time, I wasn't as physically beat up as I am now, James. I was still boxing a lot, and I'd done some fight choreography, and and had actually helped choreograph some scenes. So I was like a pseudo stuntman. I wasn't a stunt guy, but I was very capable of taking falls. And they had a stunt guy around, but I was the Riddler's first official kill, Corey's first official kill on that show. So we're working together, we block it out, and then I take a fall for them, and they go, "Oh, you know what you're doing?" I said, "Yeah, I'm good." Yeah. He goes, "Oh, we're gonna get rid of the stunt guy. You okay with doing the falls today?" I go, "Oh, sure, yeah."
What could go wrong?
Unbeknownst to me, I die 27 times,
Oh, oh my.
and at the 10th time I fall on my right hip, I say, "Hey, can I get a pad?" So we end up getting a pad for my elbow and my hip. And I was hurting for about a month.
Ooh.
It was about a month that it because I would have been good with about 5, but they were like, they just wanted to they wanted to get it right. And the director was great, the stunt guy was great, but the stunt coordinator was great. But that's something that like now that I know, I would have negotiated at least a scale and a half for that, like because I'm saving them, somebody coming in at least for 1,200 a day. So it would have been like, hey, can we get me to scale and a half on this? The one step up. I would have played it that way now.
Sure.
Because I don't care as much about other certain things too. So but that's my full circle Hamlet moment.
Talk to me about Leonardo Audio. You named your company with that title after your late dad, Leo. So I want to know, why was that important to you, and what's the bigger dream for Leonardo and Nor'easter Publishing?
Yeah, I mean, my dad was a fisherman. He was, a really unique guy. He didn't read. He could read, obviously, but he didn't. He wasn't. We had really only my uncle on my mother's side was sort of an erudite guy. He was a former state senator, and then he went to the Kennedy School for a grad degree at Harvard, and he worked in lobbying for a while. But for my immediate family, I'm the only one that went to school. And he recognized that, and as best he knew how, tried to cultivate it. I mean, there were opportunities when I was younger that I think we could have done more cultivation, like Montessori schools and things like that, but they just didn't know. They didn't have any ability to know. So, as best they could, they sort of cultivated my mind, and then he understood that I not only was good at certain things and using my mind, but then when I wanted to be a full-time actor, and he recognized that politics was not the path that I really wanted to be on, he was the one who encouraged me to move to LA, to move away, to move 3,000 plus miles away from my family to pursue this thing, because a lot of them just didn't take risks. They weren't risk takers, and he heavily encouraged that. So, I owe him that. And, he, ended up unfortunately taking his own life in 2013. And this was he got a cancer diagnosis that actually went like really, really well. But he was he had vanity, a level of vanity that wasn't obtuse, but ran through his veins. And once he thought he couldn't defend his family anymore, he felt that he had no other choice. Also, there are medications that sometimes cause suicidal ideation, and we didn't go too deep into it, but it was I wanted to honor him by making this company, a memory of him, but then also eventually come full circle to helping as many people as possible that we can, in these mentally trying times. And as we continue to grow and produce and micro publish quality work and try to elevate human voices as much as we possibly can, and try to elevate union performers as a signatory. As we keep on doing these things, there's a greater good later. We have plans to do some really, really great things in that space, and also in the dog rescue space. So these are things that once we get a few more resources, we're gonna really, really firmly put our boots in the ground and design some programs that will be evergreen and working on their own, so that lots of other people can help in the same ways.
I love that.
Do you want to know about how the company, like the divisions of the company?
Sure.
Yeah. So we basically do 5 things, right? So Leonardo, in its essence, is an audio production company. So started out producing for independent authors. Now we're currently producing for Simon and Schuster, Podium, Source Books, and we have a few other companies that hopefully we'll be producing for very shortly. Then we do post-production for a few of those companies. We also do, we are an education center. So it's really important to me that I do whatever I can to maximize other narrators' time and energy in our industry. I think that some narrators need to be a lot in our, because everyone's coming from different directions to our industry, James. A lot of people don't know what they know until they know it. And then it's like, I just wasted 18 months of my life. So the way I design programs is I want you to have as much as possible in this finite amount of time that you are spending with me, to be able to then go out on your own, make great decisions for yourself, and figure out whether or not this thing is for you.
Right.
And then in this thing that is for you, to do the things, meaning the genres of choice, your branding, like we talked about my branding in LA, right? Not being able to be branded. I talk heavily about this stuff. and the messaging is very clear. You want your branding to say, I do X, Y, and Z. And then everything will lead to you doing X, Y, and Z. And you auditioning for X, Y, and Z. So important. And then we have a workout program. So we do workshops and then we do workouts. For workshops, we do business, we do prep, we do characters, we do marketing, and we do a Biz of VO class for audiobook narrators, which means we teach you about every other category in the industry, in the VO industry, because you now have a broadcast quality studio that you can create sound for anything. And then we have a workout program of which you are involved, which is it's a vetted narrator program where we have 100 narrators that we know can do quality work. Their work is tested. They are eligible for 12 slots per night with casting directors and casting producers in our industry. We have 3 of these nights a month. They come in, they do a Q&A for 15, 20 minutes, and then everybody reads a scene for 3 minutes, and you get directed on it, and then you have your second read with that scene. So you are calibrating your self-direction and your choices. And, those are very popular. All those events sell out within about, on average, a half an hour. And I do not plan when I release, when I post the events. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So people in the program get an email and then people just, they're waiting for it. It's a wonderful thing we're doing. And then we do these workouts, myself, Christina Delane, Seth Podowitz, and Matt Godfrey. We teach for very inexpensively. When you want to come in and work a scene, say you want to work a new demo, say you want to try out a new genre in a risk-free environment, say you want to just keep your machine moving on a week that you're off.
Yeah.
Say you have a challenging book with multiple characters that you don't know how to delineate properly in an active book that you're narrating now. You can bring all of these options into the workouts that we have. So bring them in, work the scene, and we'll help you make better choices on that very valuable thing to you. Let's see. And then we have a studio. We have a studio in Boston that is, primarily for directing local author talent from essentially MIT and Harvard and some of the other BU, BC. We're right in Central Square, Cambridge. The plan is to have another facility in LA by 2027.
Nice.
So, things are going well, and the industry is responding to us building these studios. They want it. They need these authors, especially the authors that are reading their own material. We need to figure out systems that are not remote, that they are capable of having a studio that can have great sound. And then I'm the upsell when they need a director. They bring me in, and I'm an author whisperer of sorts. So we allow them to feel comfortable. And then Nor'easter is basically, just think of that as New England-based content. So New England-based authors for New England-based stories. And so we're cultivating not only local authors that are coming under our umbrella, but also local narrators, and narrators that can deliver New England performances consistently, and we can trust them with that. So that's everything.
So let's go ahead and wrap things up here. I've got 2 more questions for you.
Sure.
So out of all of the audiobook titles you've done, is there a single dream title that you'd love to narrate that hasn't come your way yet?
It's hard. It's hard to say that because you're putting yourself against another narrator, right?
True.
It's like, and so I feel bad saying this, but I'm going to say it. I have to say it. Richard Ferrone was not only a mentor, but like a good friend who passed away a few years ago. And he narrated Lucas Davenport for many years. And there's a great narrator that's doing it right now, but that's a series that I listened to for a very long time. A la Reacher. I've listened to all the Dick Hill and now Scott Brick reading, narrating Reacher. Like I listen to all of them, I'm a fan because I'm a fan of that cinematic feel without the sound design. Like I'm a fan of it. But Richard was like my favorite. And, I would have loved to have followed him in that like to do him honor by narrating that, because I think I could have kept his tone with it. I could have, it would have been, I think, more of a seamless transition with me to do that for him. And so that's not against the person who's reading it now. That's the dude's a fantastic narrator. His rate is higher than mine. I can guarantee you that. But so that's a sign. That's a sign. But the thing, if you ask me what's the dream IP, Spencer. Yeah, like the old Robert B. Parker, and
Sure.
Ace Atkins is writing it now, and I met him at BoucherCon this year. He's friends with my friend Brian from Recorded Books, Brian Sweeney, and I was not shy. I said, "Hey, when Joe Mantegna wants to retire, you have to give me that book. You have to give me it. It's not because I have and it's not for the lead, like it's for the color around it, right? So because Joe's such a great narrator, such a great performer, because he's from Chicago and no one cares. No one cares. He's like Chicago, he was in the Bears, sketches with Chris Farley,
Right.
and Robert Smigel and George Wendt, right? These are, and George Wendt's funny because he was on Cheers for 11 years. So that's a little bit of a crossover. But it's for the ancillary characters that I can bring in Boston people. And so now you are aware that this is Boston without a doubt. And then with my ability to deliver a straight non-accented lead and a straight non-accented narration with all that Boston color around it. It's just now, does the listener want that when they've been listening to Joe? I hope so. But to me, that'd be a nice factory reset, whenever he doesn't want to read anymore. I that would be my dream, man. Spencer for hire. And I'm not going to talk about the movie that Mark Wahlberg put out, because it's just, it completely goes, it's kind of like taking the IP and going, you know what, let's do this. Let's do this. And I would have been like, if I was in that room, I would have like, no, let's not. Yeah. No, let's not do that. Let's not do that either. No, let's not do that. By the way, why don't we just make you produce so you're not Spencer? Can we do that? And make him not a Bostonian? Because he's not, from Arizona or something. Yeah. No. Yeah.
All right, last one for you. Looking down the project pipeline, what's next for you and Leonardo Audio in 26 and beyond? Do you have any secret projects that you can tease us with?
Well, we are launching. So we're in a soft launch for Nor'easter right now, but we are hard launching at the Newburyport Literary Festival in late April. And we've got one project that is already out with this soft launch, is a project called The First Murder that I narrated with the lead character, Caleb Crane. And we're going to do his series. And it was for Carol Goodman Kaufman, who's a terrific Massachusetts-based author. And so that is already out exclusively on Audible. And that's in soft launch. So we have two things going on. One is we're doing a pilot program with Emerson, where we got a collection of student authors, and we took submissions and we put them through a publishing process. So they got published, they got paid to publish, and we've made audio of their works, and it's an anthology. It's called Emerging Voices. So this program is a pilot that we will hopefully roll out to another 9 schools over the next 2 semesters. And it's something that we want to embed with creative writing programs so that, we can elevate all of those student writers to not only encapsulate a great short story in fiction, but let them educate them on like what a true publishing process is like.
I love that.
And then we are putting together something called Tales of Titletown. So we got together Ron Borges, who is a classic. He's a wonderful author who we met. I produced Christy Martin, who is one of the most famous female boxers in the world. Sydney Sweeney did a movie called Christy with her about her story. I produced that audiobook called Fighting for Survival for Blackstone a few years ago. Brought Nicole Zanzarella to narrate on it. And then I got to direct Christy on like an updated epilogue that we did. Through that relationship, Ron and I have been friends. And so we brought him on as he's our acquisitions editor. But he was a reporter, a sports reporter in this market for 40 years. So we're putting together Tales of Titletown. It's all local Boston sports writers, I should say New England-based sports writers, writing about the major teams in the industry and some of the major stories that have happened over the last 45 years. And we put it into audio. On some of them, the authors are reading. On some of them, I am reading. And that will be released at Newburyport Literary Festival. We'll be having the release date then, and then we're having our launch party right after. So Bob Ryan is on this, Tom Curran, John Tomasi, Chris Price. So there's a lot of really well-known, John Corrales, Dale Arnold, who was an announcer for the Boston Bruins for years and was a famous sports radio host. It's a terrific group of individuals. Having Bob Ryan on that is it's a lot of fun. So as a cursed Boston sports person, to put that out and to have it in audio and to start that brand with that kind of high quality work is I'm very pleased.
That is fantastic. Chris, thank you so much for being on the show. It has been an absolute pleasure just to sit and chat with you. I really appreciate you.
Thank you, man. This was awesome. And give me all the links. I want my group, feel free in our Facebook group, James, to post this link. And I want them all to know about this. And everyone in the industry should be listening to not only your podcast, but all the podcasts that are, educational and anecdotal. And, we've got such a wonderful industry of warm, compassionate people that when you are taking the time and effort to put something like this together, we want to get as many ears as possible on it.
Completely agree. And a heartfelt thanks for all of you for tuning in to listening to this episode. If you enjoyed this episode today, I ask that you please rate it, review it, and subscribe. It would help us reach many more storytellers just like you. Drop us a line on anywhere you find us on the social medias, or email me directly about who you'd love to hear next, or even better, if you personally, dear listener, would like to be a guest on the show. And also, I host a Discord server where I showcase my behind-the-scenes work of audiobook narration. Click the link below in the show notes because I would love to have you as a part of that community. And as always, dear listener, everybody has a story to tell, and I want to hear yours. And so until I talk to you next time, peace be with you.